Well, you find me here today with my old mate Jan Porter, and today we're going to be looking at fishing big rivers, and they don't come much bigger and mightier than the tidal Trent. And we're at Collingham, just below the big famous Cromwell Weir, and there's been a lot of rain the last couple of days. It's normally a powerful river, but believe me, it's absolutely heaving through at the moment, and this is going to be quite a challenge to see what we can catch from here. And I would like to catch some barbel. There are bream and chub here as well. Yeah. And we've put our heads together, we've discussed tactics, and you know, we're raring to go. So perhaps you want to describe the tactics we're going to use, Jan?
Well, what people might not know is that actually Mick's fished the Trent more than I have in the last 20 years. I moved away from Nottingham about a decade ago, and I've not really been back. So this is actually you know, a really refreshing change for me to come. It's the first time I fished the river this year as well. So tactics employed today, we've got two options, and it's either going to be block end or open end feeder. Could go for the straight lead, but I think with the conditions as they are, we're going to be looking to put a bit of food in, because when you get colour on a river that's fining off, you know, there's only one word that springs to mind, and that's barbel. And so between the two of us, we're going to hopefully come up with the right combination for this particular area on the day. But whatever happens, I'm sure we're going to have a bit of fun, and certainly the conditions are conspiring for us for a change. Not normally the case, is it?
No, well, certainly the water temperature's right, the level's right, the colour's right. This is barbel time, believe me. And it's just a matter of getting you rigged down there in amongst them and feeding it so that you inspire them to feed and take the bait. And it sounds pretty straightforward in theory, but getting your feed down there with your hook baits in this very turbulent, fast water is quite tricky, and there's a lot of calculated guesswork going on, but that's what makes it interesting, really, and you know, and it's all leading up to that rod ramming round when you get the bite.
Yeah. Well, it's certainly going to be a challenge. There's lots of rocks there. You can see with the current, it's all vortexing up, so that's something to avoid. And what Mick and myself will be trying to do is, on a very basic level, just show you what we do. I mean, it's a fairly simple tactic, but there's a few do's and don'ts, and we'll go through the whole of the rigs, the baits, the terminal tackle, everything to do with the hardware, knocking the ground bait up, and whatever we're going to be using. So by the end of it, hopefully, if you don't know how to barbel fish and you've not really had a go at it, you'll be able to come somewhere like this and have a go with a little bit more confidence.
Yeah, well, enough talking about it. Come on, let's get on with it.
Well, before that, we've got to toss up for swims.
Have we?
Yeah,
well,
so what...
Oh, I see. I'm not having the best swim.
Well, it's not a match, okay.
Right.
What it is, it's just a bit of fun, but...
All right, there's the upstream and the downstream.
And the downstream's the flyer.
I know.
Okay,
I know.
so we're going to have tails for downstream.
Can I just check that coin first?
Yeah. It's
go on then. Go on.
Double-tailed coin. Tails for downstream and heads for upstream. So I'll let you call.
Right, heads.
Heads.
Oh.
And it's tails, I'm afraid. So I'm going down there, and Mick's going...
Well, we'll go our separate ways and see how we get on. Good luck.
Good luck, fella. See you in a bit. Cheers. Well done, pal.
How about that?
I'm very jealous.
Lovely fish.
Yeah, that's typical.
Well, that's a
short, stocky Trent Barbel, isn't it?
Typical Trent Barbel, and that one took the 12mm pre-drilled Robin Red, and
yeah, it's nailed that, isn't it? Like...
Oh, I mean, usually with barbel, but once the hook's in.
Yeah. So was it a pretty savage bite?
Yeah, typical barbel bite, and as I say, those ace razor points when they're in, aren't they?
Yeah, brilliant.
And let me just take it out and.
So while you're doing that, I'll go through the rig. So we've got a grip mesh feeder here with 2 ounces of extra lead on 30, so you're looking at about 3 ounces and a bit. Main line, £12, is it?
£12 main line, yeah.
£12 tribal, I guess.
Yeah, and
then a hook link of a bit longer than what I use.
Yeah, and it's actually £25 breaking strain. I started off with £10, which I thought would be ample, but there's a lot of rocks on the slope, and it was fraying, and I did have one cut-off rigging it in, so I've opted to 25.
Being honest, when you've got this kind of colour in the water, it doesn't really seem to matter, does it?
Well, this is the way I've always fished, and I've always been successful in coloured water. You know, with medium length, heavy braid hook links, size 10 hook, and the
free running feeder.
Free running feeder, yeah. I mean, it's very simple, really. Probably the key point is that the way I pack the feeder, because I don't want to be casting in too much, because there's a lot of snags there.
Yeah.
Every time you cast in, you risk losing the lot. So I've got a long weight, so I'm packing the feeder really tight, you know, with method mix and a few pellets.
Okay.
Anyway,
well,
we better get this.
We get this
back.
one back straight away.
Yeah,
so
let's have a last look at it. Look at that.
So that's what one looks like.
Yeah, typical.
Yeah, well, it's a noted fish. It's got a bit of a split fin there. So
yeah.
Come back in a few years' time, catch him, he'll be well into the
Yeah, I'll
water.
tell you what. You can't believe after that incredible fight I've had, it's still as strong as ever.
All right, mate. I'll leave you to it.
Okay.
Well done. I'll go back and get cast in. See you in a bit. Mick, give us a hand. Honest mate, that just nearly took the bottom of my chin off.
Do you know, I saw the bite from where I was sitting.
Did you?
I just glanced down towards you, and I saw your rod go over.
It's Bertie.
Is it a barbel?
It's a buell, yeah.
Good man.
Well, I had a little bit of a sneaky go on the maggot and the worms just because I was not getting any bites, and I had an eel.
Yeah.
And then I went back on the pellet. I'm fishing a bit smaller ones than you're fishing.
Yeah.
But doubles. Whee!
Oh, that's it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You're a gentleman.
Nice one, mate. Oh, yeah.
Oh, Ken, one of the locals, just been down. He was chatting to me about all our yesterdays, and it just ooped over, and well, it was a proper bite anyway. So.
Yeah, lovely.
Can you hold it there, mate? Because my unlucky mat's a little bit up the bank, so I'll be back in a second. Well, thanks for netting it, Mick. I do appreciate your help. And I was getting a bit worried there. I know the river was fining down. The river's fined down, and as we've been here not too long, but it's dropped about, must be 2 foot now, easily.
Easily, yeah, and it's become very fishable now, and I can sort of predict where my bait's going now. And
Okay. So this is my rig anyway, if you want to have a look at it. Unlike yours, which is a running rig, mine's it's fixed on a loop.
Yeah. Does that go back from your old mass fishing?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
And then I've actually got a couple of the smaller krills there. And that's a barbless, believe it or not.
Yeah, I noticed that.
And I've just got it on an elastic band.
Yeah.
And a little tiny ace. I don't know what that's called, really. It's like a little buffer thing you put on the hook to make D-links and things.
Oh, I see. Yeah, yeah.
And so that's the damage.
Yeah, you're on a size 10.
It is quite a big hook, yeah. I would say it's a 10, yeah.
Yeah.
One of the razor point.
Yeah. Well, you've got a fabulous fish here. Look at
Yeah.
that. Hold on to that.
Well, we'll share it. I think you landed it, so.
Yeah, that's a beautiful fish, isn't it?
Yeah. What do you reckon? That's about 5 or 6 pound?
Probably a bit more than that, yeah. It's over 6. And, you know, like other fish, that's sort of floppy, but barbel, it's like holding a piece of bloody muscle, isn't it? You know, it's an incredibly strong fish.
Well, we've got a few bites sort of coming along now, which it's a patient job, really. You just got to sit tight and put the hours in sometimes with the barbel. It's summer, so we want to get this back in the water fairly quickly. But as you can see, it's a beautiful fish, and hopefully we'll get a few more.
Yeah, let's hope so. I think we found the method and the bait.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Lovely fishing, isn't it?
Excellent. Thank you.
Well, yeah, and that was a hell of a fight, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, it's extra. I mean, it's tidal. I mean, it's the tide's running out. We've got extra water in, and that rod, you know, it's a through action rod. It was hooped over, and it really did stick in the current there. But of course, this time of year, as I said earlier, you know, you've got to look after the fish. They use so much energy up they actually produce lactic acid, which freezes all the muscles if you're not careful. So it's really imperative that if you do catch a barbel of any size, really, any time of year, make sure you give it a chance to recuperate and don't let it just go straight back in the water, because chances are, if it's in a state of, you know, tensed up muscles, then it could actually die. So what we're suggesting here, most good barbel anglers will advocate, is you just give it some time, keep it in that position there. You can see the gills are moving, the gill covers are moving quite nicely, and any moment now we could let it go, but I'm not happy to let it go until we're certain that it's going to swim away of its own accord. So we'll just give it a little nudge and just see, there you go. And that's...
Yeah, and I think it's important to let it go in a little bit of slack water, because if you release it into that raging current and it washes away, you don't know what's going to happen to it.
Okay.
At least it's got a chance to recover on the edge of the current here and then go back about its business.
And that's got a few marks on it, that fish. It's been caught a few times, the dorsal fin slightly deformed. So somebody else has had the pleasure out of it, and that's what we want to do. We want to return it and make sure somebody catches it another day a little bit bigger and gives it the same amount of enjoyment that we've had.
Exactly.
Well, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to quickly show you what bait I'm using. We've already discussed a bit about the rigs, and Mick will continue with that discussion in more detail. So first of all, I'm going to choose either the block end, which I'd normally use in clearer water. This is a traditional black cap with what I call a dead cow, or dead cow if you're from Nottingham. 2.5 ounces on top of a feeder that's already got an ounce and a half rating, and about 4 ounces. That's ideal for this river today in the condition it's in. But as I say, I'd normally use this in clear water, and what this has is a similar kind of effect to a pepper pot. So, you know, you can imagine the current blowing through that, and these are mini krills. They're about 1 or 2 mils looking at them, and they just shake out in the current, and eventually they'll just put a nice little stream of mini pellets, which is absolutely fantastic technique for catching fish. But because there's a lot of colour in the water today, I think we want something with a little bit more smell. There's plenty of smell in the pellets there, but they fragment out and they go in the rocks and things. Great on gravel. It's very, very rocky there where we're fishing, just past, so I want to get some bigger baits in. And to that I'm going to use an open-end feeder. There's lots of open-end feeders. I prefer the grip mesh, very robust. Again, with a dead cow, which seems to be compatible with these. I don't know if you can buy these anymore now, but I've had these from when I had my tackle shop in the 80s. And just a little swivel on the end, and that attaches onto the way I put my feeders onto the main line. Into the grip mesh feeder, I'm going to be using a mix, which I've already knocked up earlier. There's a few casters and a bit of hemp in there. It'd be remiss of me not to go on the river without putting casters and hemp in. But ostensibly, it's got the mini krill pellets in, the fry crumb pellets in there, the odd 1 or 2 12 millis, and then what I'm using on the hook, which is double 8 millis. I've got 8 millis in there. And this is a concoction that I've knocked together, sieved through. It's very, very fine. So I can do 1 or 2 things. I can either compact it into the grip mesh feeder really, really tight and have a slow release, which Mick again is going to talk to you a bit more in depth about, or I can make it very, very fluffy. Could even actually put it in the block end if I wanted to. That consists of 2 ground baits, both very, very aromatic in terms of fishy smells. We've got the red krill and, well, they're both swim stims. I've got the black, which I've used a lot for tench fishing recently, and I'm a big fan of that. And obviously you've got the green. It doesn't really matter which colour you use, but I like to just tone down the colour a bit when I'm fishing, especially in clear water. It doesn't matter so much today. So just equal mixes. It's not a stiff method mix. This is a very, very soft mix, but if you sieve it and do the normal things with a ground bait, put plenty of effort and energy into it and just add water little and often, sieve it through the ground bait, you can make it do lots of different things. So that's the actual ground bait. There's the swim stim carp pellets, red krill. So they're actually 1 mil, I said 1 to 2. So they're really, really lovely. Nice little tiny baby pellets. Put them back. And then the hook bait material, which are these robin reds, and this is the first time I've actually used these. So Darren Goulder, a good friend of mine who does a lot of barbel fishing, Matt Rand was telling me that he's caught a few barbel on the Y first time out, so that's good enough for me. Barbel will pretty much pick anything up, you know, they're scavengers, and they've got something with a nice pungent aroma like these. And that means I can fish a smaller hook. I don't like to fish massive hooks if I can help it. I use fish heavy gear, but I don't use a big hook. So in essence, that's the bait, and what I'm going to talk to you about now is the actual hardware. Well, that's the bait covered as far as I'm concerned. Just keep it simple. I think that's the watchwords whenever you're fishing, really. In terms of the hardware, as you can see, I'm using a little bit larger reel than most. This is a super bait runner 10,000. I've used big bait runners in this configuration for a long time now. Actually, before I stopped fishing the circuit in the late 80s, I was using the 8,000, the 4runner to the 8-10, the 4-500s. I'm a big fan of bait runners, absolutely perfect for barbel fishing. On this one here, you can just adjust the drag. If I just turn that off a little bit, you can see that the current just takes it around. Just click it, a few clicks, and every click adds a little bit more incremental pressure on those plates. Of course, if I do get a fish and I'm not paying attention, that's a safety net. The fish can take and run with the line, and it's not going to rip the rod into the water. The line I'm using is 12 pound. I make no excuses for that. I use heavy line now. When I match fished, I was probably one of the lightest line anglers on the circuit for many years, but this is 12 pound, and it's a very fine diameter. It's very strong abrasive resistance. I've got a lot of confidence. I've used it, and it's precursor to that for many years. The rod, a bit of a misnomer, this one. I actually saw these at the trade shows when they first came out. I loved the traditional style cork, nice short handle. It's my convention for rods. This is the Katana Barbel Power. Now, it's actually, I get these for fishing on the Warwickshire Avon, Bristol Avon, and I was a little bit nervous about bringing it here because I knew there's extra water on, and it's a through action rod, which a lot of barbel anglers like, but knowing what I know about the Trent, even though I don't fish it so much these days, a lot of anglers use carp rods, 2 3/4, sometimes even 3 pounds. I would suggest if you come in here, you've got to be looking for a rod at least 2 1/4. This is rated at 2 1/4, and it's actually surprised me. I mean, I don't like through action rods, I'll be honest with you, but this has proved a lot better in this kind of environment than I ever imagined. So I'm not suggesting for 1 minute that you go for a softer rod, but with a current like this, it's carrying extra water, it's doing everything I wanted it to do, and you know, it's holding the bottom there. There's not a massive big bend in it. Comes with 2 tops, a 1 3/4. This is the 2 1/4 variant. And cosmetically, it's a beautiful rod, and playing fish, it's absolutely sublime. So that's the setup in terms of the rod, reel, and the main line. And as you can see, I've got a traditional setup here. Rod rests high up in the air. That's absolutely imperative, and has been ever since I started feeder fishing in the late 70s. I've got a butt rest there. You can use one of them, or you can just tag one of your intermediates onto the rod rest itself. You can see I've got an extending rod rest. This is a 4 to 7 foot. Doesn't matter what type you use as long as it's robust. And then on the top there, I've got an old rod rest set that was made to me by the late great Brian Murray from Wakefield area, and that can adjust the angle. So I've got it tipped back a little bit there now. It doesn't catch any line on it. It's absolutely perfect for fish taking the line, and there's no obstructions on it. So that's my setup. I'm going to let Mick do the rest of the talking for a little while now, and I'm going to cast out again and hopefully latch onto a barbel, which is what we come here for. Well, as I was describing a little earlier about the action on this rod, as you can see, I've got something on in the air and I assume it's a barbel. Either that is a carp or a rather large chub or bream. Just whacked over, typical barbel bite. Just a case of picking the rod up, clicking the bait runner over, and then playing it on the secondary drag, which has previously been set. That's got to be a little bit careful here because it's very snaggy. I love it when the line sings. It's an old-fashioned thing, but oh, it's back out again now. Whoa. The beauty about having a through action rod, which I say is not my conventional rod. I like a fast action rod, tip, middle, and a very powerful butt. The beauty about it is it's very forgiving, and it's particularly useful if you're using braid. In fact, my personal best off of the River Trent, caught several years ago, I was fishing for chub on stewing steak, and I dropped down to diameter 14, sort of high-tech hook length, and I had a 12.5 pound barbel. And had I not had a through action rod on the braid, definitely some of these lunges that this is thrown at me now, and this current would have just dinked me on the hook length. So, you know, I suppose I'm warming a bit more to through action rods, and when it's doing it like this, I mean, I've got no complaints at all. It's just a case of keeping the pressure on now. There's a lot of rocks down there. We're actually fishing way up the bank because there's about 3 or 4 foot of extra water on. Again, perfect conditions. First flush through, fining down, and well, it's just a case of really hanging on and keeping the pressure on and the bend in the rod, not letting the rod go flat. It's not a big fish, but I mean, all barbel fight like stink anyway. In fact, the smaller ones, you get the 3 to sort of 5 pound mark, they probably arguably go even better than the big ones. I could net this on my own, but my faithful gilly here, Michael's going to come and help me. Well done, sir.
A bit of practice, well done, mate.
Thank you very much.
But on the double pellet again?
Yeah, yeah. On the red one,
yeah.
The cruel red.
Yeah, it's early days to say which is the better method at the moment.
Well, I think that, listen, it's about confidence when all's said and done, and you know, one man's meat's another man's poison, but you know, I'd be happy fishing on. I've just gone to littler pellets really over the last sort of few years rather than the big ones. I'll tell you what, we'll just unhook it in the water, I think.
Yeah, well, you're using the barbel hook, so that's come out quite easy, isn't it?
I don't know if I mentioned that earlier. I mean, I've been a big fan of barbel hook since I match fishing, because if you're speed fishing, you get it caught in your net, this, that, and the other.
It's a lovely fish you've got.
Yeah,
look at that.
But for hard mouth fish like barbel, predators and stuff like that, I do prefer barbel. As long as you keep the pressure on, there's no problem. But
no, not at all.
Nice one, Michael.
Right, do you want me to slip it back?
Yeah, please, if you would just see if it's ready to go, because I'd say that's about, what do you reckon, 4-ish? 4 and a bit?
Yeah, 4 and a bit, yeah. To be honest though, it doesn't matter what they weigh, does it? It's just
It felt like a double, believe me.
They all feel like doubles in this in this flow, but you wait till we do get a double, then you'll know about it.
Yeah. Well, I reckon if I get a double, them corks are going to be creaking a lot more than we were just then. Yeah. What we're going to do now is we're going to move away from this swim and we're going to concentrate on yours, because obviously Mick's got a slightly different approach to me, and you know, it's early doors yet. We've only been fishing a little while, and when I say that, we've been fishing for several hours, but we know we've been fishing when the conditions are absolutely perfect. The tide's running out. It's going to turn at some point, and that's when I'm really excited, because normally for me on tidals, that's when something happens, and we've already had a few bites, haven't we?
Yeah, and although we're talking about the fishing and comparing notes, we are fishing slightly differently. And so if you come along to my swim, I'll show you what I'm doing up there.
Okay, look forward to that.
Well, I'll take a break from the fishing just for a few minutes as it's gone quiet, just to show you how I'm rigged up. Now, Jan and I are rigged up in a fairly similar way, really. I think the difference is just in the detail, really. We're both using running open-end feeders, a similar amount of weight. I've got about 4 ounces on there. And there's a buffer bead down to a swivel. And then there's about 18 inches of 25-pound braid and a size 10 razor point hook. And the reason I'm using 25-pound hook link, I started off with a lighter one, a 12-pound hook link. So a lot of rocks down there in the edge, and I've cut off a couple of times just bringing the rig back. So playing safe in case I get a big fish, I've gone up to a 25-pound hook link. I know Jan likes to put his pellet on in a different way to me, and I know he's using 2 smaller pellets, 2 8mm. I'm just using 1 12mm, Robin Red again, and it's just on a conventional hair with a boilie stop. So there's nothing really too elaborate about that, but there is a difference in the way I'm packing my feeder. Now, I think it's important when you're fishing a big river like this for barbel to get your feeder and all your bait concentrated as much as you can in one spot. If you spread your bait all over the river, then the barbel are going to be spread out and it's going to be harder to catch them. So I'm using a heavy feeder that will quickly settle in the same spot every time, but it does probably take 10 to 20 seconds to settle. And I don't want my bait to come out during that period. So what I do, it's something that's always worked for me. Instead of using just a normal ground bait, I use a really stiff method mix, and that's not going to come out very easy. Just a couple of 8mm pellets. Even though I'm using 12 on the hook, I like to just get their interest with the smaller pellets. and then finish off with another pile of method mix, and I pack that in really rock hard, really tight. And when that feeder is rolling around the swim trying to find somewhere to settle, I can guarantee that because of it's compacted so hard, that won't come out. In fact, I don't think it starts coming out for 3 or 4 minutes after the feeder has settled. And sometimes I've had a bite within 3 or 4 minutes, and I've come back and I've still got all the feed in there. And then once that's settled, and it should settle in the same place every time, very, very slowly the method mix will melt, and then eventually it'll work its way through and the pellets will come out. And then 20 inches below the feeder is my hook bait, a razor sharp hook, and hopefully the barbel will pick up the pellet, nick itself with the sharp hook, and then literally hook itself against the feeder, and that's when that rod rams round, and that's what we're waiting for. As I say, it is important to get your bait in the same spot every time, and the only problem I'm finding here is there's a lot of snags down there, there's a lot of rocks, and ideally I would like to be casting that feeder every 5 minutes to build up a bed, but to be honest, I'm scared of bringing it out because I am damaging my line and I'm snagging up, so I'm probably bringing in every 15 to 20 minutes. I do want more bait out there, so what I'm doing is about 20 yards upstream, I'm loose feeding, and I'm throwing in a few pellets, similar size, 12 mil to my hook baits, and I'm trying to gauge the line that they're going to come down and hopefully end up somewhere near my feeder. And it's one of those things, I need more bait in the swim, but if I get it wrong, then the fish are going to be spread out. It's an approach that's worked for me in the past, and you know, I've got no reason to believe it's not going to work today, so I'm going to carry on fishing that way with the confidence of knowing this has worked for me before, not just on the Trent, but on other big rivers. Just feel the feeder down to the bottom. I felt it hit bottom. Get the rod on the rest, and I'm watching the line come around, and it's settling at the base of the rocks at the bottom of the slope. I'm quite happy that it's in the right place, and now I'm just going to lock the rod in position on the back rest. It's a lock-in rest in case the rod gets pulled in. I'm going to put the bait runner on, like so. Just check that there's a bit of give there. Now when that rod rams round, and I'm hoping it will do, it's not going to pull the rod in and it's not going to break the line, so I can actually sit back now in the sunshine, relax and wait for a bite.
That's me done, mate. Had enough?
Well, I haven't had enough, but I think, you know, we've got to call it a day. And it's been an interesting day, hasn't it?
Yeah, yes, it's been tough. But it generally is tough when you get that first flush of water coming through. But we've had a few problems with snags, as you would expect, when you're fishing over the rocks. But by and large, it's been really enjoyable. And I hope that you've picked up a few tips, if you didn't already know these basics of fishing in floodwater conditions on heavy, powerful rivers that are tidal, like the River Trent. But it's certainly been nice to come back again after a long time, and it'll be a lot shorter the next time I come around, I promise you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I found it quite challenging, actually. It's took me a long time to understand this bit of the river. We've never been here before, no. and I think that's part of the magic of, you know, barbel fishing, isn't it? You know, if you just threw in and had bites galore, it would get boring. But
well, I mean, I've got millions of books of excuses, and I don't want to start another one now, but the fact is this is not such a pressured stretch of the tidal Trent as most are. So as a consequence of that, there's not so much bait in, and that can be a blessing in one way, but sometimes the fish, even though they're not easy to catch on pressured waters, they do hang around when the anglers clear off. So, but we've seen fish sporting, and last night when we did a bit of a recce, there were plenty of fish showing, so we knew that we had a chance. And we had a couple of spells that are like bite spells, so don't ever give up. If you've not caught, just stick at it. As long as you keep the feed going in, keep it in the same kind of spot. If you do find a snaggy bit, obviously try and avoid that, find a new area, and just stick with it. And eventually, you know, you should be successful and get a few bites. And we've had a couple of eels, you know, we've had a couple of false bites, probably liners and things, but by and large, it's been pretty good. Not the biggest barbel in the Trent, but I can tell you something, they don't, pound for pound, they fight better than any mid-level Trent fish. Warwickshire Raven, 7, I think they're the most powerful fish I've ever caught.
Yeah, but the main thing is it's been an interesting day and we've learnt a lot about this section, and of course when we come back we'll be pre-armed with all that knowledge, and I know for sure I'm coming back, are you?
Yeah, I'll be back again. Yeah. So we'll sign off from here, and hopefully we'll see you again soon, Mick and myself in session. So until then, good luck, great angling, and ta-ra from us.
Take care.